little the Commission can do before we get some reactions from Danvas Makori from the NCIC.
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, was created following the 2007-2008 post-election violence to address and reduce inter-ethnic conflicts. The Commission says it has successfully investigated complaints on hate speech and ethnic contempt and secured prosecution of over 3,000 individuals since inception. On the ground, however, the Commission has been reduced to a toothless bulldog in securing convictions for lack of admissible, substantial and reliable evidence that a criminal offence known to the law has been committed by the accused persons. Nonetheless, the Commission states, and I quote, "While only 3 convictions have been secured, the investigations in themselves serve as a deterrence to hate speech-related offences." End of quote.
Prosecution is the work of the ODPP. The ODPP has trained advocates nowadays, not even the police. The NCIC does not have powers. They do not have the capacity. They don't have the capacity to prosecute. Just like National Construction Authority, theirs is issuing threats. Have you ever had anyone prosecuted by National Construction Authority?
They don't have any prosecutorial powers. They cannot prosecute. You know, it's only the DPP who has those powers under the Constitution. I am not sure that they even have the capacity and the machinery to even conduct investigations.
On 17th June 2016, 8 politicians were charged in court and released on bail for alleged hate speech after spending 4 days in the cells. They included former Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama, Junet Mohamed, Aisha Jumwa, Florence Mutua, Timothy Bosire, Moses Kuria, Kimani Ngunjiri, and Ferdinand Waititu, in what became known as the famous Pangani 6. All the charges were later dropped.
We need to be very firm on these politicians so that we don't treat some like we handle them with kid gloves, then others maybe we are very hard on them.
In Kenya, our political culture is that we reward those who appear to be more vicious or to be more vitriol. Those are the people we elect.
This week, NCIC summoned 10 MPs from different political divides to record statements on the violence that rocked recent mini polls. The Director of Public Prosecutions also ordered twin investigations into a video that showed former sports CS Rashid Echesa slapping an election official, as well as investigations into misconduct and violence witnessed in Matungu and London Ward in Nakuru County. On Tuesday, Kiambu Chief Magistrate Patricia Gishuhi directed that Echesa be released on a cash bail of 1 million shillings and a surety of similar amount, since it was not a trial and that no evidence had been presented before her. The case will be mentioned on 9th April.
In Kenya, being a politician or occupying a political office for that matter is a ticket for impunity. We have had so many of these people, others beat others. We have had Alice Wahome, who was seen when she was in the good books of Jubilee slapping a returning officer. Nothing was done to her.
NCIC Chairperson Reverend Samuel Kobia says the Commission has written to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, asking the agency to seek legal mandate from the judiciary to remove from office leaders who break the law of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, the same way civil servants who are indicted on corruption charges have to step down from office.
This is, in a way, somehow an amorphous organization. I do not think it was a well thought out, even how it was structured.
If we are to tame politicians, maybe we require a more coordinated effort between Constitutional Commission, like Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and the National Integration and Cohesion Commission. But one of them acting solely, I do not think they are in a position to tame politicians.
On 29th January 2020, Justices Jesse Lesit, Luka Kimaru and John Mativo prohibited the DPP or any other person acting on their behalf from further prosecuting Johnson Muthama over the alleged hate speech remarks he made on 23rd September 2015 at Uhuru Park, Nairobi, in opposition to policies of the Jubilee administration. The judges declared Section 96A of the Penal Code unconstitutional to the extent that it shifts the legal and evidential burden of proof to an accused person before the prosecution has discharged its legal burden of proof of establishing its case in a criminal trial. NCIC has since sought refuge under Section 26, subsection 2B of the National Cohesion and Integration Act of 2008 to publish the list of shame of persons and institutions whose words or conduct may undermine peace and harmony. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
All right, so I bring in, Mr. Makori, the NCIC Commissioner, back into this conversation from our City Centre studio. Mr. Makori, what we're getting from that story that has been filed by my colleague Patrick Amimo is there is lack of coordinated effort, and also the fact that the NCIC does not have power to prosecute, and this is something that the NCIC also talked about, requesting to be given more powers to prosecute hate mongers here in the country. But even as much as you're saying that you are going to be working with the Communication Authority, so take us through that journey on what you're going to be looking at with the CA.
That clip has raised a number of issues, which, geez, I would like to comment on all of them. But let me answer you. First of all, you start with your questions, and I can answer it, then expand it to not just the CA, but other agencies that we're working with, because the clips has mentioned it, and also you've mentioned it as a prelude to your question. Now, for CA, the reason we did it and we're doing it with others is simple, because no one entity in government can work by itself to be effective 100%. You need other agencies. And therefore, because they have a legal mandate, especially, the aegis of law is with them on this one. We had to work with them closely. Also, they have the technical capacity. I mean, when we engaged with them, went to the offices and talked to the technical staff, and we saw what they do and what they can do. It was unbelievable. We said, this is just a no-brainer. So it's just leveraging. We're leveraging on their capacity, and the law gives us that because we are all government agencies, and they're very willing to help us and work with us. So from a legal perspective, we know where they stand and also where we stand. We've given an NCIC Act, but they have the technical capacity, of course, and really to go on cyberspace and to monitor, and so it was really a no-brainer for us to work with. Let me just say this also on what you said about other agencies, what your clip has said. Truth be told, in the previous election cycles, we've seen agencies work in silos, and is never effective. So we have a new approach, and we've convened a new task force, actually, with the EACC, the DCI, with the ORPP, with the DPP, and the judiciary, and of course us as a convener, to tackle this issue, to avoid those loopholes which we have seen. Is because, truth be told, Brenda, when you arrest somebody today and charge them with hate speech, it will take an average of 5 years for the case to be heard and determined. So if it's a politician, he already ran his 5-year term, and it's the next, and people forgot exactly what he said. So to close those loopholes, what we've done is have a multi-agency task force with all the agencies I've mentioned to close the loopholes, and it's very effective right now. There's a deterrence effect, and we are seeing the effects on the ground. All right.
So as we bring this conversation to an end in a minute, can you respond to my question in a minute? I mean, yes, you're looking at social media platforms for different, for Kenyans who are using different social media platforms. But let's talk about the media. I mean, the media has social media platforms, and any time they post something, that is when you see Kenyans of different political divide come and start hurling insults at each other. So how are you going to use the media so as to ensure that the social media platform also does not become an avenue of hate speech?
First of all, let me just say, let me congratulate our media, which is you and all the media houses in Kenya. I think for the most part, you've been very responsible. You've been responsible. Let me go, generally speaking, once in a while there's issues which you address. How do we do it and how we're going to do it? A couple of months ago, we engaged the Editors Guild. All the media houses are represented in the Editors Guild, and we actually specifically, that was one of the main agenda actually we addressed with the media houses, the owner of media houses. We're planning more meetings with media houses, especially the editors, and I think they are very keenly aware of the responsibility they bear to our country. As a matter of fact, it's stipulated in our constitution, the role they have in our constitution, the media. So I think for me, you've been, for the most part, well behaved, and we're seeking to engage more with you. And for me, it's not so much what the media reports on the handles that is the issue. It's what people now say. So if you say something that is neutral or generic, for example, and somebody picks it up and runs it and twists it, it is not your fault because you're reporting facts as it is. Now, what I can encourage media houses to be sensitive in what they say and how they say it, especially in hotspots areas that we know, to be conflict sensitive. It will help us in our work.
All right. Danvas Makori, Thank you for joining us here on KTN News Center this morning. He's one of the commissioners at the NCIC, and they're taking a different route again. This, not even a different route, but just tightening the loose ends when it comes to monitoring